Hi, welcome to From the Heart. Today I have an episode that kind of was easy for me to gather information for, and it's on the consumption of fish. This is a question that is asked often at the first visit with a midwife. And so in my career, I actually gathered information to try to give the best information to my clients. And I found that what people tell each other and what the evidence says can be sometimes different, or like just because there's different information, it can be kind of confusing as well. People talk a lot about the toxins in fish and maybe we shouldn't eat them, but then there's a lot of benefits in fish. And so what do we do? And so this is also not an episode just for pregnant people. This is for everyone. Eating fish has effects on everybody. So, and I will be talking about, can you eat sushi while you're pregnant? So, and I have with me Prairie just to hold space for me and maybe make this a bit more of a dialogue than the ones where I do and just talk to a screen, because that does not work for me. I end up recording like 17 times to say the same thing over and over again. And so I just want to say, if you want to go back to my episode on the fraudulence in research and in toxins, you'll see that, like this is just the information that we have access to today. So it is limited. Research and science is always very limited. And so I will always recommend that you follow your intuition above all else. And this is just a place of information, and that's going to change tomorrow or in 17 years, who knows? So always use your intuition. So like, think of like when you were a kid and you said, I don't want to eat this thing. And then your father does, and then he gets sick. That's because you followed your intuition as a kid. And then we kind of lose that. And so I just kind of want to reiterate, like your intuition might not tell you the same thing every day. Like the salsa you might have in front of you might be bad this one time, but might be good this other time. And so just always follow your intuition, and that will lead you the right way. And it's actually really sneaky how intuition works. Like I've been kind of playing with like grabbing food from the aisle, like when I'm like picking rice or whatever. Not that I eat too much rice, but just I ended up picking the one with less arsenic, like the one that doesn't have arsenic. And I was like, that's the one for me. No idea why. So, and then I found out because I do this podcast that rice has arsenic except for the rice that's organic in California, and that's the one I had picked. So it's just like, like just remember that those things inside of yourself, and just to come back to that. And yeah. So basically what people really know about fish is just that there's a lot of omega-3s in there. So what people need to know about omegas is that it can be either inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. And what makes it anti-inflammatory or inflammatory is the ratio of it. So we need both. But in this industrialized diet that we have a really high ratio of omega-6s versus omega-3s. And if you go back into what was healthy for us, a ratio of 1-to-1 or to 2-to-1 was healthy, but now we're at ratios of 10-to-1, 20-to-1, and even 30-to-1, causing lots of like,
the omega-6.
Yeah, but the omega-6 is too high in our diet.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's causing inflammatory issues affecting all of our cells, our brains, the development of the fetus and children and our cells, cardiovascular disease. I could go on. I don't remember half of it. So that's like really that's the summary of it. And so what is the best omega-3s to eat, and how do we reduce the omega-6s? We don't want to eliminate the omega-6s, but we do want to reduce them for sure. So the best way to reduce it significantly is to get rid of our industrialized seed oils. So those are oxidized already before they get to your home, and they're a bunch of omega-6s. So that's the way that I cook and eat at home. It's, when you eat out or at someone else's home, it's harder. Like people use canola oil in their own pantry and, that kind of thing. So And then the way to increase the omega-3s really is to increase fish intake. Oh, let me just change this. There we go. So people do talk about, so there's different types of omega-3s and omega-6s, but the ones that are really important are the DHA and EPA, which are in the fish, while in flax seeds and walnuts, it's the ALA. Anyways, so that doesn't really convert very much. I don't know if I have that right, the ALA right, but anyways, it has another omega-3 in it, and it doesn't really convert into DHA and to EPA, which is what we really need the most. So, and then if you take flaxseed oil, again, it'll be oxidized. Any oil that you take that's extracted from food will be oxidized, including fish oil. I'll get
Is that good? Is oxidation?
No, oxidize is not good. So it actually reverses the effects that we were looking from it. So yeah, it can it can cause inflammation rather than decrease inflammation. So it's really important if you decide to take an omega-3 supplement, like a fish oil supplement, that you look for really good quality. It stays in your fridge max 3 months. So that can be hard to find. Chris Kresser has his recommendation where it's a cod liver oil. People have their problems with that because it has vitamin A. I've done my thing. That's actually what I take if I take omega-3s for a short period of time, which would be if I'm bleeding too much with my period. For me, if you're pregnant, you can consider omega-3s because it's really hard to kind of keep on track of like what your baby needs and what your body needs. But again, I would recommend eating fish. I'll just go through like your sardines, your salmon, your anchovies, like those kinds of fish. And I'll get into mercury in a little bit. So yeah, so it can cause inflammation. So it's really important to do your research about what quality it is. I would take a cod liver oil from a good source if I can, but I again wouldn't do that all the time.
What would be a good source? Like if
That's
people
hard. I didn't do that research because I don't do omega-3s for myself. But so Chris Kresser, my intuition tells me that I can trust him. I really do like his information. The way that he interprets research really aligns with the way I see research too. And he knows more about research than I do. And he recommends there's a cod liver oil in somewhere in those northern European countries.
Like the Nordic, like Sweden or
one
Finland
of those,
or Norway.
one of those countries. And so in my notes, I'm gonna put like at least one of his links about omega-3s in there. And like if you dig a little bit, it'll be like it's called Rositas, something like that. But yeah, if you have cardiovascular disease, that's like another kind of indicator. Maybe you want to increase your omega-3s in some good healthy way. Yeah. But honestly, what I would do is just increase the fish intake and like adding sardines from like brine, so salt water, and not like your seed oils, can really, like you can add that to your pasta. You can add that to your salad so easily.
True.
You know.
Especially, I've actually never tried sardines, and I've heard so much in the last couple years about them, and I'm like so nervous to try them because it looks gross, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in that boat. So
that's what I eat the most.
Is it good?
Yeah,
it is
because it's really sustainable and it's cheaper.
Does it taste good or is it?
Yeah, it tastes like fish.
Okay.
Yeah, and like that's like
if you try me
cook fish, it's usually sardine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe if people don't like the taste, they could do the brine and put it in.
No, the brine is just salt water.
Oh,
but it's just like you don't want to store it in your omega-6 oxidation, like oxidized oils. Like so you don't want to you don't want your fish or anything to be stored in like your cottonseed oils or your canola oil or your sunflower oil if you're trying to reduce that ratio to a healthier one. Fish eggs is actually fish eggs. If you just want to have like a good dose of omega-3s, that's a really easy one. You just get your caviar and take a spoon of fish eggs, and it's like not processed. The processing I hear like through my reading that sometimes it's not the healthiest way to extract oils from a fish. It could be some toxins in there to do that work for the companies. So yeah, those are just things to look out for. What else here? So we talked about, yeah, fish oil. Okay, so mercury. There are other toxins in fish, just like there are other toxins in the air we breathe and or whatever else we eat, the broccoli we eat. So mercury is what people really focus on. And so if you go back to my toxin episode, I said that mercury binds with selenium. And what we don't want is the mercury to bind to our selenium. We want it to bind to the selenium in the fish. So thankfully, fish is actually some of the highest sources. Actually, it is the highest source of selenium that we have in our diets. And so as long as you have a fish that has a high selenium ratio to the mercury and it binds inside the fish, then we're safe. Yeah.
Whoa.
So I'll just read
Wow.
out the fish that we should not be eating are pilot whale, shark, tilefish, king mackerel, and swordfish. And so if there are research that show that the mercury consumption in some populations were high and had some negative effects, make sure to see if they were studying these fish instead of the ones we were just talking about, sardines, anchovies, mackerel, salmon. I just get because salmon is seasonal. It's in September that we get it. That I just get the canned stuff that's wild, that has the bones in it for good calcium, and has the skin, so we have more vitamin D. And then, so when you eat the whole fish, you're getting a lot more than just the omega-3s. You might get mercury in your fish oil, but without the selenium. So you just, there's a higher nutrient, there's more nutrients in your fish than there is in your fish oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the king mackerel, swordfish, pilot whale, that's the stuff that has a low rate of the selenium?
Yep.
Okay.
And
Well,
or too much
I'm not
mercury.
eating shark or whale. So
Yeah, exactly. So we're
really,
good, right? Because
yeah.
I don't see these fish in
Yeah, maybe the mackerel. Well, I don't know the king mackerel, if that's different from regular mackerel, but I've heard of that's maybe the closest. That may be swordfish, but I've never had swordfish.
Yeah, keep it simple. Just remember the ones that are good to eat, and basically I don't even eat mackerel myself. I just eat sardines, anchovies, and salmon.
Yeah,
I keep it simple. And then I do have some omega, some fish eggs either in the fridge or in the freezer. And then I forgot that I had them, but that's actually something that I could remember if I wanted to increase my omega-3s really quickly. Okay, and this is a question that you had. You were talking to me about the Fukushima nuclear devastation that happened in Japan in 2011. So there was an earthquake, and that caused a big disaster in Japan where the nuclear, what is it you call it? The nuclear power plant kind of released inside the ocean and into the atmosphere. And so there are people what the information that I have access to here actually is from research that's done on the Pacific side of the States. So it'll be, I'm assuming, who knows, similar to what is on the Pacific side of Canada. And they say that that the disaster actually only added a little bit of the radiation that's already in the ocean, and that there is more radiation in a banana or flying in an airplane than there is from eating the fish in the Pacific. So
Yeah,
That's the
that's a
information
relief.
that's the information that we have right now. The other stuff where they say that there is reason to worry doesn't stem from any valuable, like, studied sources, So, so again, listen to your intuition. If you don't, you're like, I don't feel like, if the fish arrives in front of you, I don't feel like having it. Listen to that. If you are wanting to gobble up fish, like, the minute we become pregnant, like, people don't usually want to stay vegan because the body needs nutrients. So, and like, a lot of veganism stems around more political kind of reasons rather than health reasons. And again, I'm not here to shame like vegans, but just like nutrient wise, when we're like, especially when we're pregnant and we're developing a little brain and a little heart really fast, it's really important to have like, to know the side effects of that. And veganism especially can be really devastating to the growth of a baby. So especially when it's strict, if there's no like egg yolks and fish, it could
The
be
omegas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a relief about Fukushima, because that was I remember personally there was a huge scare about that, and don't eat fish, or it needs to be Atlantic. But especially here, we're so far from it.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet the first year or two in Japan, maybe the local environment was more heavily affected, but I mean, it's been over 10 years now, so.
Yeah. I wonder, because of that, like, that source of information isn't close to 2025, so I'm not sure if you should eat the fish when you're in Japan in the north,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's something to, like, if you go and travel, that's something else to look into while you're there. Okay, so I learned this in my practice. So again, people say, don't eat sushi, don't eat raw cheese, don't eat this, don't eat that when you're pregnant. And so there's a lot of fear in the world of eating and being pregnant. And I'm going to say it's like, we should not be taking really new drugs or or drugs. Like, really minimize the amount of drugs that you can when you're pregnant. There's pros and cons depending on what's happening in your body. But then there's not a lot of evidence for that. And the people that I have seen being sick are people who were eating raw packaged vegetables. So your raw lettuce in a plastic bag, because in the plastic bag, it's where it grows. So again, like, my clients probably weren't eating all that much raw cheese and like all those things, so that I can't really say that I have a really good population base of telling you that those things don't get us sick when we're pregnant or not pregnant. But I will say that what I saw was the raw veggies.
Yeah.
In plastic packaging.
Even in the news, that's what you hear the most of, like, grocery recalls are those packaged salads, anything in the plastic. It's usually that, sometimes meat, but I actually feel I've heard more about the produce than the meat being recalled in grocery stores.
Yeah. And when it comes to meat, if it's like your processed meat, and of course, like, the health gurus will tell you not to eat a lot of processed meat. But if you do eat processed meat, you just don't want it to be in the fridge more than 3 days. At least that was my mom's rule. So I think that, like, that's an okay rule to follow if your intuition tells you to. But so with sushi, there's actually zero evidence to tell pregnant women not to eat it. Zero.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where does that myth come from?
Because it's raw, and then across the world there are different ways of regulating what we eat. So this is like Google stuff that I was reviewing, and I'm not a big fan of Dr. Google, but this is the information that I got, and it's that Canada regulates the sushi and how frozen it needs to be and whatever else pretty well. And so it really is parasites that we need to be careful of. But parasites live in meat and other seafood, in our fruits and our vegetables, aquatic plants like watercress, and like the unpasteurized dairy. So, and this is like parasites are also not good for anybody, whether you're pregnant or not. So, yeah, what I would say is take that like with whatever you want. Like I still eat sushi sometimes, but I don't eat it on a regular basis. I don't eat poke bowls on a regular basis. I don't but we live in Canada, we don't need to worry too much about it. And if there are ways of eating sushi that aren't, like there are cooked, you can get sushi that is cooked fish. You can get sushi that is like sweet potatoes.
Yeah,
or
that's what I do. I actually don't like raw fish or raw meat, like tartare.
Yeah.
So everyone loves to get sushi, but I'm like, I'll just have the veggie rolls or I mean, I've kind of come around to oysters, but the way I got there was there's like baked oysters. Like you can bake it and they put like cheese on it, but I've come around a little bit to that. So I'm one of those people who's not big into raw meats, fish, but
I personally love raw meat and fish. But I've just like reduced the amount that I eat. It's just not every day. I don't get the sushi from the grocery store. I try to get well, I also don't know how to evaluate the quality of like the storing of it, but they say that we don't need to worry too much about it in Canada. In the States, however, you do have to consider the quality of the restaurant. So that's what I was reading.
Oh,
and
the regulations, like
they don't
health
have
and safety.
Yeah, they don't have. They have less. And then what a sushi chef was saying was that freshwater fish are better than the hot water fish. Like that's not the proper term, hot water fish, but like tropical water fish. So so he was saying that. So yeah, just things to consider. And this is something I was randomly reading. I wasn't even looking into the fish consumption thing. But what's really cool is that women actually store fat very differently than men. And in our bodies, we will store certain kinds of fats in our butts and thighs and hips, which are actually the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So the omegas, the omega-6s and 3s. And so we start depositing that fat around our hips before we have our period, because when our babies grow, when we get pregnant, we can't keep up with the amount of omega-3s that our babies need. So we start storing it very early on. And what I was reading was that we do a lot of liposuction on that area of the body, and we have no idea. There's no research on what happens to the development of babies and where they get their fats, because as someone who's had liposuction gains weight again, she gains weight in her arms rather than in her hips.
Yeah, interesting.
So somehow liposuction ends up lessening the amount of fat that we gain later in those places, but then we gain them in different places. And that study was or article said that it was in our arms. So there's there's an educated assumption that is a different kind of fat that we're storing. And there are no studies on what happens if you've had liposuction before you've had a pregnancy. Yeah,
I'd be really curious to know that.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to see, the effects and of like a longitudinal study on those babies. It would be interesting to see a study on the fats in the breast milk that the woman produces. That could be like a faster, easier study. The book comes from like the information I got that from was from a book called Eve, and I don't remember the author right now. But I'll put it all in the show notes along with like a bunch of studies and other things. But I will say that the woman's body is quite resilient. So, but again, I'm personally not a big fan of too much plastic surgery, but that's just me, no judgment. Just but it's just it does show how much we do things to people's bodies, especially women's bodies, because research is done on man's bodies. Because if we were to do research on women's bodies, we'd have to take into account all the hormonal changes that happen every day, while a man's body has a similar hormonal profile every day. And so research on drugs, like even she was talking about anesthesia, so being put to sleep for your surgery. We've only realized like later, like in 2000 or so, that women wake up faster from general anesthesia and that kind of stuff. So so there's not a lot of information on women's bodies. There's also not a lot of information on how on mental health and what makes us happy. Like that's mostly just done on men's bodies and lives. So that's why, like, I really think it's important to again come back to the intuition. And intuition is not a place where like it's like grasping it. It needs to move fast. If it needs to move fast, it's not your intuition. If it comes from a place like, oh yeah, I know, or whatever, like that's when I've realized that whenever I move fast, I'm like, I have to do something. I have to apply for a job out of desperation, you know, like that's not going to lead to anything good. And so, oh, I have to buy this because this is going to happen or whatever.
Yeah.
Like just like,
yeah, the desperation.
yeah.
Which is the fastest. You really need to slow.
And that's
the
just our
brain
nervous
down.
systems and what we've grown up into and what we've normalized, and it's survival. It's survival. It's okay. Like we all do it. We all move fast sometimes, and but that's not the intuition. Intuition is just like, I just know something's off or something's good or I need this. So, and like, you know, like my diet will change throughout the seasons just naturally without me kind of saying, oh, it's the season, so I should eat this, you know, like it's just naturally kind of, you know, what happens. So, and again, like there are studies that show that if we take a supplement of omega-3s, it reduces the amount of postpartum depression. But again, like I would recommend eating fish just because the omega, like the supplements are not the greatest, but if you're at risk, then look into a good quality supplement. Yeah, it could be hard to like, I'm not sure how to navigate that, except for like the research that Chris Kresser did. So
yeah, I've heard a lot of conflicting things about omega-3 supplements, and I've been told to maybe take them for mental health, and I've just never known where to start with it all. And I know there's a lot of supplements that aren't even that nutritional for us. So
yeah,
I'm taking away that I just got to eat fish and maybe try sardines.
yeah. Yeah, if that's like think about the information and don't make a decision maybe today, but like if it feels right to you in a few days, you know, then or it could be like if the fish fish eggs, like whatever
Yeah, I've tried that. I like that.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, and like honestly, if you can do yourself a big favor, it's reduce your omega-6s. Take out your canola. Like one time I just went like I'm getting rid of my canola oil, my other seed oils, and just like got rid of them. And then everything I've been taking in has been like the coconut oil that you can cook with, has been ghee, has been like olive oil for the salads or things that are raw.
Avocado oil is good. Those like high heat.
Yeah, well, so avocado oil can go rancid, and it's one to take in moderation. And so is sesame oil. So you can have some sesame oil, you can have some avocados, because avocados are high in omega-6s.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
But
gosh.
so like honestly, you can have your like your poultry and your eggs and your avocados. But if you don't have or you really reduce the amount of the seed oils, you're doing yourself a huge favor. So it's not about eliminating omega-6s, it's about highly reducing based on the industrialized diet that we have. So omega-3, like your avocados is okay, but just avoid your canola oil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have questions?
Um, I'm just still stumped that there's no research about women eating sushi, pregnant women, and that there's just such a huge myth. I guess this is a myth. Like you always hear that.
Well,
And I'm like,
I'm
wow.
not sure that there's no research, but there's no evidence to not tell a woman to eat sushi. So if we were to look at Japan and what they do, they don't stop eating sushi, and maybe there's no evidence in telling a woman to not eat sushi based on what we know there. There are more parasitic parasite infections in Japan than there is here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like maybe that's the only reason they recommend not to, is because you get a higher risk of having parasites.
or other
Maybe.
bacteria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've always said if I was pregnant, I would probably, I used to drink raw milk and being around farmers when I grew up. I mean, I don't really drink it now, but occasionally if I'm at a friend's house and they're farmers and they have raw milk and I have a tea, I'm gonna take it.
Mm.
So if I was pregnant, my body's already used to it. I think that's one thing too, is to be like, if you've already introduced this food into your life and had no problems, I think it'd be okay if you're pregnant. But like maybe not try this new stuff like, oh, I'm gonna start eating raw fish or raw milk when I'm pregnant. Like that's more, your body's just not used to it.
I will say it's not so much about your body being used to it. Well, potentially maybe you're immune to some bacteria and things, but again, just follow your intuition when you have the glass of, let's say, your raw milk in your hand, and you're like, like when you're a kid and you just know you can't have this thing
Yeah,
like that, like just follow that. And like whether you say you're used to it or not. So when I was traveling in Kenya, the milk was so good. Like it was so good. And like I had like it was like a little bit of tea in the milk because the cows are like super pasteurized. Um like they're in the savannah. They're not even on a farm. They're in the savannah, and the milk was so delicious. So, and I'm not someone who grew up with unpasteurized milk, but it was so good. And so, like I think just feel it out, because maybe there could be bacteria in that batch of milk that you have, even though you're used to having raw milk.
True.
So, and maybe you're a pregnant person traveling to Kenya, and or whatever else. Like just like I would say follow your intuition. Yeah. Or like even if you're not in Kenya, you're just with a bunch of farmers, you don't even know it's unpasteurized. You don't need to worry if you've drank it or not.
Yeah, that's true. I had a farmer friend who she, grew up as a dairy farmer, but when she got pregnant, she's like, no, I'm not going to drink it.
Yeah.
I love this milk, but I just don't feel like I need to right now, and would just rather
look at how the cows are treated, or the goats or whatever. How healthy does that look? How clean does that look? Yeah. So there are things. Are they are they on pasture? Would make a difference for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how they're treated.
Are they healthy cows? Healthy goats? Yeah.
Yeah. Do they get antibiotics and all that when they're raised and born? That's also a big consideration. Yeah.
What I mean is that, like, I'm not saying don't worry about it. I just don't want to cause anxiety in women who might have done an oopsie and had a sushi by accident or had a glass of milk by accident. So The world is full of anxiety. We don't need extra.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think it's totally follow your intuition, because many women have consumed these things and been completely fine.
Yeah.
And there's been women who have not consumed these things and things have happened.
Once in a blue moon, we get sick from something. We get sick from our salsa. We get sick from our sushi. We get sick from our lettuce. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, have a nice day, everyone. I'll have a lot of notes in the show notes, lots of studies and or resources to look more into. And thank you, Prairie.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.